items. One is that the public, you are all muted. So if you would like to speak, you would need to use the raise hand option on Zoom for that. And otherwise, the coordinating council members can just unmute yourselves and talk. Okay. Bathrooms are down the hall. No, just kidding. I think that's really all I need to say. So Jonathan, do you want to start?
Thank you, Kathy, and welcome everyone to today's meeting for the Loxahatchee River Management Coordinating Council. Our first order of business is to have our roll call. Kathy, could you proceed to call the roll?
Yes. U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Here. Okay. Andrew. Florida DEP.
Chad Kennedy here from DEP.
Okay. Florida DOT.
Good afternoon, it's Ann Broadwell.
Thank you. Okay, U.S. Department of Interior. Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Services.
Rebecca Elliott is here for FDAX.
Thank you. South Florida Water Management District. Justin, are you there?
I'm sorry, I'm still on mute. Yeah, I'm present.
Okay. Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council.
Tom Lanahan here.
Thank you. Martin County. Okay, I know they were going to call in, so let's see. Town of Jupiter.
Tom Howard, here's.
Tom, you're not Town of Jupiter.
Oh, I'll go back to Jupiter Inlet District then.
Yeah. All right, we'll call Jupiter Inlet District, Tom Howard. Okay, Town of Jupiter. Village of Tequesta.
Matthew Hammond here for Tequesta.
Thank you. Palm Beach County.
Maria Marino.
Thank you. Loxahatchee River District.
So we're having some internet issues over here. So I think Aubrey's trying to get signed on, but hopefully he'll be joining us soon. Yeah.
Okay. South Indian River Water Control District.
Present.
Thank you. North Palm Beach Improvement District.
Jonathan here for them.
Thank you. Farm Bureau.
Hey, this is Gary Ritter here.
Thank you. Palm Beach County Environmental and Conservation. Herb.
Here.
Thank you. Martin County Environmental Conservation Group. Dick.
Here.
Thank you. And Land Representative Pat McGrogan. Okay, well, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Kathy. First up is the approval of minutes from the September 28th meeting.
I would like to make a revision or suggest a revision. On page 8, question, comments for Rob. That first sentence should read, Herb's even steady recall discussions about planting cypress trees many years ago. that the Little Wave area had high salinity, and then it should say in the sediments, not and sediments.
Okay, okay, just gonna ask, I know that that was Herb, but when you all come on and talk, if you just state your name first, just so I make sure that I know who's talking.
Oh, good point. Sorry.
That's
Dick,
okay, I knew that was you.
excuse me, Dick Roberts, I've got one correction. Kathy,
What?
Dick Roberts on page 6. They said I did not respond. I guess I responded and nobody picked it up. So just that third line is that Dick Roberts did not respond. I actually voted favorably. Yes,
Okay,
no big deal.
Herb Zevitt, I'll move approval then.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments or questions on the meetings, the minutes? If not, I move that we approve the meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second?
I did second.
yeah, Dick Roberts, second, I think.
I seconded it. Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any dissents the same way? If not, I'll turn it over to Kathy. The meeting's minutes have been approved as amended. Next item is election of the officers. Kathy, would you like to give the results?
Yeah, okay, just so y'all know, Aubrey and Tom, everybody loves you very much. It was very, very close. I really had to bug everybody to vote to break the tie, but the final count was Aubrey with 10 and Tom with 7. So Aubrey is the chair, Tom is the vice chair, and everybody voted for Ann. So Ann is the secretary.
A lot of choice.
Well, congratulations to all of our new incoming officers. And we look forward to working with you in the coming year. Next item up is public comment. And as Kathy suggested, if we have any members of the public that would like to comment, please raise your hand, and then I would ask Kathy to recognize them.
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, very well. And moving on, next item on the agenda is our project updates. Up first is Bud Howard on our pollution reduction plan annual reporting.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know if everybody heard, we're having some internet issues over here. I guess somebody damaged the fiber optic line that we ride on that is part of the counties, and I guess they're trying to fix it. So feel free for somebody to interrupt if it's not going well. If I can, let me just share my screen here, and I'll take you through some of the things that are based on a conversation that I had with the folks over at DEP. And let's see here. Can everybody see my screen?
No.
I can.
No.
I
I can
can.
see it, Bud. It's Chad.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can see it.
there we go. All right, might just take a second to refresh on everybody's machine. So recall, for the benefit of the new people, over the past few years, we worked with DEP on a pollution reduction plan. It's all part of the TMDL program. And basically the DEP had identified impairments in water quality in the Loxahatchee River. And because the Loxahatchee River Management Coordinating Council has all of the stakeholders at the same table, we believe that, or the DEP felt that this was a great opportunity to work with the Management Coordinating Council towards the development of either a TMDL, or in our case, we went down a pathway called a 4E plan, or a pollution reduction plan. And so that report's been put together. I can get you a copy. There's a link on our website, and I'm sure Kathy has a copy. If not, we can make sure we'll get you a copy. But this lays out all of the projects that have been completed in the past 10 years that are various types of pollution reduction plans to specifically reduce nitrogen and phosphorus. And then also there's a bacteria component. And this project was accepted by the DEP secretary in February 2020. And so we're continuing much of the work that all of us have been working on in various areas. And so, but now it's time to do an update to it, or not an update, but just provide some annual reporting. Backing up a little bit, this is a summary of what it's for. It's, to memorialize the projects that are recently completed or in the works, and help that are helping to improve water quality and reduce the amount of the impairments that we have. Here's the reporting chapter. It's on the next to last page of the report. But at the end of the day, the report is not that cumbersome. Basically, there's a very comprehensive spreadsheet that we all compiled to list the various types of projects we've been working on. And we need to basically update that spreadsheet and then provide just some comments on it. At 5 years, reporting gets complex, where we need to do some assessment of our water quality data, see how we're doing with pollution loadings, that type of thing. But given that this is just our first year report, it's basically updating the information. And so, as I mentioned, there's the spreadsheet. We went out to the stakeholders that had projects that were listed as planned or underway. And we just need to basically provide an update of this. I'm happy to help take the lead on this if the council desires, and compile the information. Kathy sent out an email several weeks ago indicating the folks that, again, had projects listed on here. Town of Jupiter, grateful, already give me the information for their projects, as well as some new projects that weren't listed. So thanks to Rebecca for taking care of that. DOT folks, and I'm not sure how the Turnpike Authority versus District 4 projects all tie together, and who would.
This is Anne. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. I forwarded our list, I think last Thursday or Friday, to Karen. Turnpike, you would have to reach out to them separately, their Orlando office. I'm not sure who gave you the original list from there, but I mean, if you want me to track that down, I can, if you haven't reached out to them already.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful if you could. Again, basically forwarding that email that Kathy sent out a couple weeks ago, I think would be really helpful.
Okay.
Because it has the spreadsheet with it. It has the spreadsheet attached, and basically, look for folks to just update that and highlight it in red and send it back to me. So again, for all the other members, if you have any pollution reduction projects going on, as a resident of Tequesta, it's like there's been a heck of a lot of activity going on. So Matt, if you guys can share with us anything that we can add to the spreadsheet, I think that will help, be able to show, benefits and potential water quality improvement projects. We'll leave it to DEP to make the decision on whether or not they provide credits or not, but at least putting forth everything that's going on in the Loxahatchee, I think, is in our best interest. So then it brings me to the last part here. I think I'm seeking, again, I'm happy to help coordinate this just from, we've got everybody at the same table, or at least in this case, the virtual table. So whatever we can do to facilitate this, I'm happy to help. Maybe all of those that are interested in kind of being involved in compiling this information, we put together a simple letter report for transmittal and then submit it to DEP. Perhaps the Management Coordinating Council wants to approve this at the March meeting before it goes. There's a myriad of different pathways it seems like we could take on this, but looking for guidance. It's, again, DEP's desire to have us fulfill the annual reporting. And I think, we could probably easily accommodate this. So I'll hand it back over.
Thank you, Bud. Does anybody have any questions for Bud or would like to give any input? Any questions for Bud?
This is Aubrey Arrington. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thanks. Welcome.
Can you hear me, Jonathan?
Yes, I can hear you.
Curious. Okay, great. So curious, I've been here through most of the meeting, but at least now you can hear me. Personally, I think this is a terrific opportunity for the coordinating council to come together and to show leadership. I think that the coordinating council did come together and showed leadership as we worked through the process of settling on a 4E plan and submitting that to DEP to get their buy-in and working as collaboratively with the council to provide these updates, which seem like a reasonable effort. I certainly think this is a good action that is worth the council's effort. So I would like to just voice my support for the idea that Bud's laid out here, that the coordinating council be the venue where we're discussing the ongoing success of these projects and then communicate that up to DEP.
Are there any other comments?
Mr. Former Chair, this is Tom Howard.
Thank you, Tom.
Number one, I want to thank you for the hard work you've performed over the past 3 years. It was a job well done. I know it takes a lot of time, and I'm sure the council thanks you. And Aubrey, I'm inclined to congratulate you on your selection, but I have it on good authority that I will be getting some additional votes later tonight.
That's excellent, Tom.
But
I promise not to storm the Capitol nor the JID headquarters if that were to occur.
and I don't use Twitter, so I can't bother you with tweeting. So I would like to, on something that's relevant, maybe more than what I just said, is I would like to think that the council can have some input, given the wide expertise that its members have, to help agencies identify projects that might reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and the bacteria. We know currently that the projects are not sufficient, as I recall, to reduce the total nitrogen load sufficient to become a 4B plan. Therefore, even if the projects currently underway are successful, we're probably not going to get where we need to go. So I would encourage the council to consider perhaps no later than the June meeting to come up with some suggestions to various agencies if you think a project would be material in reducing the nitrogen, phosphorus, or the bacteria we're talking about. Bear in mind, most agencies go through their budget in the third quarter. And so I think with the upcoming meeting in June would be a good time to make recommendations. Obviously, you've got to be able to convince the elected official that it's worthy of taxpayer money. Any input I think the council could give to the agencies would probably be welcome. At least I know it will be from the Jupiter Inlet District. That's all I have. Thank you.
Tom, I think that's an excellent issue, and would like Kathy to add this to the agenda for our next meeting. I can't remember when the next one is. It's February now. But I think even just laying out a high level graphic of the types of projects that could be envisioned and how they might improve nutrient reduction or nutrient concentrations in the watershed, at a high level, going and pointing a finger at any specific agency and saying you should be doing this or that. That might be a good first step to just have a discussion amongst ourselves on the kinds of projects that could be done, and then allow various agencies to chime in on the potential relevance of those projects to themselves. So I think that's a terrific idea.
Aubrey, this is Kathy. Our next meeting is actually March 22nd.
Great. So will you add that on the agenda, and we'll take a shot at that. I might see if Bud can be a point person, maybe work with some of the other technical staff from some of the other agencies, and just lay out, work with DEP, the successful projects they've seen, and we'll look and see if we see any gaps on what's going on in the river and if we can fill those gaps.
Okay, do you, I'm not quite sure how to title it.
I'll email you something.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else with comments on issues on the pollution reduction annual reporting?
This is Herb. I was curious as to where we stand with the restoration plan. There's a lot of projects associated with that that could do some good, depending on exactly where all this pollution is coming from, are concerned about. But from what I heard, that we are like, you can hardly see us with a binocular on the list. Does anyone have any more information than that, I hope?
Aubrey, do you have anything on that?
Herb, are you?
Go ahead.
Are you talking on the federal restoration effort, or
Exactly.
on some of the projects that were listed out in the? You're talking the federal effort. I would ask if Justin or someone from water management wanted to chime in on that.
Justin, unmute yourself.
There we are. Herb, actually, I have no comment on that right now. I think we can find an answer for you, and Kathy can share that later.
Do we want to put an update on that project on the agenda?
Tom, I'll defer to you on that.
I think the simple point is that, and Bud may have some of the very specific technical jargon available at his fingertips, but so Congress approved, and then the president signed, Congress passed and the president signed into law the Water Resources Development Act, which authorized the Loxahatchee River Restoration Project. So the project is now authorized. And so then the way these go is you often get authorization in one bill, and then you get funding, which has another word that begins with an A. Appropriations, thank you. You also often get appropriations in a subsequent in a subsequent bill. And so the appropriations have not yet occurred, but the project has been authorized federally by Congress and approved by or signed into law by the White House.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aubrey. Any other comments about the annual report? If not, we'll move on to the update of our plan on the Loxahatchee River Wild Scenage Management Plan.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I never know which to push here. You just keep trying until something works. Okay, Barbara Welch from the South Florida Water Management District. I spoke to you previously, and I'm going to give you a little update on where the plan is. I don't think I'm going to take the full hour, but you might have a discussion that you want to have afterwards. So I just recently found out that Marion Hedgepath had put together an outline in 2015. And the council at that time voted not to do an update to allow CERT to catch up. So the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration 5-year report to Congress was completed in December, and the CERT plan will be summarized in this plan that relates to the scenic portion. The 2020 update is moving along. So I'm going to show you what the outline is, and it might look familiar. I've done a little bit of tweaks to it from what Marion had presented. So we have the table of contents, the acknowledgements. I will ask for any input that anybody wants to give me. We will have the executive summary. And to start out with, we're going to do a little background on the history of the wild and scenic designation and the Loxahatchee River system, including the watershed, the northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River drainage basin, the Jonathan Dickinson State Park, demographics, land use. I have put into green parentheses. Hopefully I will get input and help with these from these agencies. Next, we'll do the summary of the existing protection. And then we will go to the Loxahatchee Wild and Scenic River System, and that will include the classification of the river area and corridor, and the continued management and protection of the outstanding remarkable values. This is the key part of the plan. And it will talk about the assessment, the goals and objectives, and the action plans for the following categories: river hydrology and water quantity, water quality, I have received, the Loxahatchee River District has sent me a report, a very comprehensive report, and I'm going to continue to work with them, and hopefully we can refine the assessment, goals and objectives, and action plans as a separate section. So next, I want to include the wildlife, fish, wildlife including birds, fish, vegetation, habitat monitoring and management, and historical and cultural. I have received a report already from Palm Beach County on this part. And then adding on to that is recreation and public education and outreach. This was not included in the last plan update, but it fared to be an important part to add into it. And then we have recreation and public education and outreach. And the management plan and implementation. So this would include new projects. There's a table out there with projects that have been implemented, projects that were planned, and I would like to include that. It will have to be updated, so I plan to send that out to all, hopefully the council members and anybody else on the outside that would like to contribute. And then we have the appendices. So that will include federal and state laws and policies, local agency descriptions and roles, which I have about 90% of those updated from everybody. The charter of the Loxahatchee River Coordinating Council, updated species, in, like tables like with threatened and endangered species listings. And also land management plans for the Water Management District and Jonathan Dickinson State Park. And any other project summaries out there that have happened between 2010 and 2020. I've had most of the maps already updated with current imagery, the map with the miles, the basin map, land use maps with tables, including what type of land use we have out there and how much of it. And here's a list of projects that need to be summarized. So the land management changes from Florida Park Service to the Water Management District, the Lanehart and Maxton Dams reconstructions, changes on the lateral canal system, FDOT changes on I-95 and the Turnpike, Jupiter Inlet District changes, Martin County projects, Palm Beach County projects, of course, the summary of the SERP EIS report, and I added bird surveys and studies. Water Management District has done a Vallisneria study and continues to do floodplain vegetation studies. So what projects have been completed that affect the wild and scenic portion of the Loxahatchee River in the past 10 years? And what projects are planned for the next 10 years that need to be summarized into the plan? So I need a lot of help in adding those pieces into the plan. And so I've made a tentative schedule here because I just came along this outline, and I really think this outline is will really define the status of the wild and scenic portion currently, and how the plan, what needs to move forward. I'm looking at June of 2021, of course this June, for the draft document for internal review, and July for external reviews, and a revised draft by August.
Barbara, this is Chad Kennedy, DEP. What do you mean by internal? Is that within the Water Management District or within the Loxahatchee River Management Coordinating Council? What do you mean?
Well, well, between I guess the coordinating council and the water management district. External review, I guess, would be like public.
Okay, thank you.
So I've added my information down there, and I let Kathy know that I'm going to share the projects list and this outline. And I would appreciate any questions, comments on this outline and how you can help with any of these sections.
Hey,
Okay,
Barbara?
thank you, Barbara. Do we have any questions for Barbara?
You got a comment to Barbara. This is Dick Roberts.
Great, Dick, thank you.
Yes.
Barbara, we have Atlantic Ridge is going through their process for their unit plan update. I think they have their public comments due and a public meeting next month. So you might want to add Atlantic Ridge Preserve State Park to that list of parks, including, Jonathan Dickinson and everything else.
Okay.
And I guess while we're out of we've talked about, what we're going to do, Mary and I are going to do. And I guess we just throw it out there so everybody understands what Mary and I are planning to do. We have the big report, a 16-year report on the vegetation, floodplain vegetation for the park. But we kind of decided that for this part of our report, and Barbara, you and I have talked about it, we're going to make cypress the keystone species, and we're going to focus on that part of the project. And very interesting, we actually have probably a whole documentation of how much was logged and when it was logged and who tried to step out and tried to protect the river, which is something that was kind of really interesting part of that report. And part of that side will be doing our mangroves, but we're going to focus just on those species instead of doing the big gas report that Mary and I are doing on all species. Just throwing it out there, you'll see that a little bit different as far as this management report is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
I also wanted to add that we'll do a lot of referencing of documents that already have the information in it instead of making this a huge plan document.
Anyone else with comments or questions for Barbara?
This is Chad Kennedy.
Yeah, Chad, go ahead.
Just for clarification, Barbara. So you're saying in the narrative, you'll have hyperlinks inserted and things like that will go down in the weeds to items like Dick's mentioning, right? You won't have that.
That's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. And I know the last one you did, that Diane did, it was printed. So I'm actually thinking we should do this all electronically and not have printed documents. So it would reference the sites, it would reference the information, yes, that you just said.
Thank you, Chad. Is anyone else?
Yes, this is
Howard has his hand up.
Yes, Howard.
I'm sorry, I put my hand up earlier and I guess I left it up there, so disregard it at this point. But now that you brought it up, take a look at that slide you have up that says discussion.
Yes.
If you look to the, let's say 9 o'clock, something looks like a spy camera. Can we maybe lose this picture or not use it in the inlet management plan?
Okay, it was just for the outline. It wasn't going to be part of the management plan.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
That's
Amy
interesting.
Eason,
hello. Hi.
Amy?
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Amy Eason with South Indian River Water Control District. You mentioned some projects, one Sir Wicked with the lateral canal system. Those structures were built back in 2005. There's no other updates to that canal system. Is there
Okay.
a reason?
No, it was just added in case there was. That's why it was
Okay.
added.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Tom Lanahan has,
Sure, thank you. My question is, I see that we're Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is on the list to help with demographic information. Barbara, will you be providing us something of what you're looking for?
Sure. I can provide that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay, Justin Nolte has his hand up.
Yeah, this is more for the council too. I'm curious how we, this is before my time, went through the process of identifying projects that are in the 2010 plan. And then I also identified who is going to be responsible for those projects. And if we want to look at having a special workshop just to discuss our future goals, objectives, and that's it.
Is there anyone else with comments or questions?
Yeah, this is Herb.
Okay, Herb, go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious, this is a management plan, and one of the, I guess, tools we currently have available for management is the minimum flow and level rule. Was that going to be included in this and discussed?
I can surely add that on the list.
Okay, I think it'd be a good idea, since that's, as far as management goes, that's, I think, one of the best tools we have for flow, or it should be.
Is that not included in the SERP report? That might have been included in the SERP report.
Well, I would think they have the restoration goals in the SERP report, not the minimum flow and level. Though I'm not sure.
Okay, there might be. Okay.
No, I think there's minimum flow and levels in that report. I remember reading it.
Okay.
I thought I did too. I briefed over it.
This is Tom Howard. Following up on what Herb just said, I'm confident they are, and if they're not, I don't think there's any question they should be. In addition, I think the restoration goal should also be in the management plan, at least discussed, because this is the document to be adopted by the DEP and by the Water Management District. And I don't think there's any harm in having the restoration goals included within the management plan. So I would hope that both those concepts would be there.
Bye.
Anyone else for comments for or questions for Barbara?
Dick Roberts, yes, Barbara, that the minimum flows and levels are in, and then we did go ahead. I've forgotten to see them, what stuff that Mary and I wrote, or it's in the plan. We talk about the fact that we have already graduated up to doing a restoration plan. So that is, as Tom pointed out, that's what we actually wanted to try to do, is to bring in the restoration plan, or even above and beyond the minimum flows and levels.
Okay. Duly noted.
This is Aubrey Arrington. I'd like to just comment and thank Barb for the work she has put in on this, and say that I think that arguably this report and updating this is one of the most important things that the Coordinating Council has to do this year, and look forward to being engaged myself, as well as the Loxahatchee River District team, as well as a whole Coordinating Council. So thank you very much for what you've done thus far on this effort.
Thank you. You're welcome. I do have one question. So we're getting this done in 21. but I believe we're reporting from 2010 to 2020. So I was thinking we should call this the 2020 plan update. Does everybody agree with that?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Tom Howard here. Except it's not just a report, but rather a discussion of what the agencies and others are required to perform going forward. It's not just where we are in 2020, but where we intend to be from 2020 to at least 2025.
Correct. Correct. You're correct. Yes. I guess I said that wrong. You are actually very right.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or?
Tom, as part of your plan to obtain more votes tonight?
I'll be trying that a little bit later on. I still have a rabbit up my sleeve, or that's a mixed metaphor, isn't it?
Any other
you might have noticed that Jonathan enjoys being chair.
I'm going to hang up my spurs here shortly. Any other question for Barbara?
This is Chad Kennedy with DEP, if I may.
Certainly.
Well, I guess it's kind of a question about the timing, and I'm not really sure where we're at with I guess it was a Joint Administrative Procedures Committee said that we need to have the Water Management District rather needs to remove kind of the salinity criteria for statewide consistency with the MFL. And I know the district is moving forward with that action to, be legally compliant. And I didn't know when, I can't remember the dates on that as far as, do you think that will be done prior to having this management plan complete? If you gotta get back to me, I wouldn't be surprised.
Exactly.
I'm not sure. I'm asking.
Can you send me an email? And I'll try to get an answer for that for you.
All right, I'll be glad to do it. Yeah, I know Don Medellin is working on that, but I'm not sure what the schedule is.
He works in the same section I do, so I can surely reach out to him and find out.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I appreciate it. Just out of curiosity more than anything, because that is a pretty significant shift or change. It'd be nice to capture it in this document if we can.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
So this is Aubrey. I was unaware of that, the Joint Administrative Procedure recommendation. So Kathy, can you actually communicate with Don and ask him if he can present at our March 20th meeting and bring the council up to speed on what the district's efforts are on revising the MFL?
Where am I? Yes, I can.
Great.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Barbara? If not, Barbara, thank you very much. Great job.
You're welcome. I will be in contact with a lot of you.
And we're all looking forward to that. Thank you very much. Next up, item 7, the watershed status updates. First up is Aubrey.
Sorry, I need to click the unmute button. Bud had commented, or if Bud is able to put up the dashboard, that would be helpful.
Should be coming up here.
There it is. So you can see the dashboard here through January of 2020 or 2021. And actually, on the rainfall column, a lot of green and just a little bit of red. That some of the red being excessive rainfall, like October, November, are red because they exceeded the 75% of the mean. And then here in January, we've had a pretty light amount of rainfall. Fortunately, we've gotten a bit in November. MFL flow compliance. And we see the days of violations there. And I just say a cautionary message. I don't believe that those days of violation would be anywhere near that if we delete the salinity criteria. And unless there's a comprehensive revision to the flow criteria of the MFL, in general, I will be opposed to deleting the salinity criteria from the MFL. I think arguably the salinity is the most profound aspect of the MFL because it's rated to lead to excessive salinities have been shown through research to lead to mortality of the cypress seedlings. And in any event, I'm very concerned about deleting that aspect of the MFL, how it would lead to a delusional improvement of the system. We would see fewer MFL violations or exceedances, but we would have the continuing same or worsening harm to the system. So it's just a cautionary note there on the dashboard, MFL compliance. Salinity, it's actually been so wet for so many months. I think from May through December, that entire period, the salinities we had so much rainfall, at least during some portion of the month, that salinities were sufficiently low to cause impairment or potential harm to seagrasses, including the months of May and June, when the beginning of those months were very, very dry and the end of those months went to very, very wet. So some curious, things. It's very unusual to see in the same month where red or yellow for MFL compliance and salinity. Typically, it's one or the other. Then over on the River Center, number of people that we've educated has been crushed due to COVID. But we're very happy that the River Center has shifted gears along with a lot of people. Palm Beach County Parks, Palm Beach County have really gone out in new directions and doing new online content and trying to get people out into nature through various means and methods. So while the number of people coming through the front door at the River Center, and I would assume at the Elsa Kimball Center and JD are way down, during and through this pandemic, it's been nice to see the amount of people out engaging with nature. So I think that's a good thing that isn't necessarily reflected in these numbers. So that's what we have for the dashboard.
Hey, Aubrey, thank you. Any questions for Aubrey?
This is Herb.
Go ahead, Herb.
Okay, I'm looking at the dashboard and it says salinity at NB.
Oh, NB.
Seagrass.
Herb, NB is North Bay.
North Bay, okay.
Herb, the NB there, if you know where Pat McGrogan's house is, just kind of west of the railroad tracks on the north side of the river, that historically was one of the healthiest seagrass in the watershed. And so we have for a very long time, we have used that monitoring area as an area to assess salinity because of its relevance to historically some very healthy seagrass beds.
Right. I guess my question was, you're using this to measure compliance with the NFL salinity levels?
No.
Okay.
So
good.
in the First column is rainfall. Second column is the MFL compliant downstream salinity relative to seagrasses. So the
Okay,
second column is MFL compliance, whether it's flow over Lanehart or salinity. Either one of those that are exceedances get recorded in that second column.
Okay, good. Good. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Herb and Aubrey. Any other questions for Aubrey? If not, next up is Bud Howard for water quality.
All right, thanks. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. One thing I wanted to make note of on this dashboard is on the MFL days of violation here. This was based, we were updating these at each month, and these numbers reflect the original numbers that were reported by the USGS for the River Mile 9.1. And so my understanding is that USGS has revised a bunch of data that came in during the peak of the dry season last year, and these numbers are different. So we'll make a point of updating those. As part of our work for the management plan, we've done a real comprehensive analysis on it, and looking at those numbers, those look a little higher than what we report. So we'll get all that teed up. So jumping out of this, it's one nice thing about these Zoom meetings is that we do seem to have a lot of participation. So I wanted to just once again walk everybody through some of the things that we're providing through our website and that relate to water quality and some of this MFL stuff too. So if you go to loxahatcheeriver.org or LRECD for Loxahatchee River Environmental Control District, LRECD.org, a little easier domain to type in. This is our homepage, and the things that relate to water quality and some of the flow stuff is all under here under protecting the river. If you click on that, again, we're dealing with some internet issues today, but it brings you to this page here that basically is the clearinghouse for all the variety of work that we're doing out of our laboratory with regard to water quality. We're tracking some of the flow and minimum flow and level data, rainfall that we're mining from Water Management's NextRed data sets, seagrasses, and oysters. This minimum flow and level one, as we start to come into the peak of the dry season, is one that I hope everybody will keep an eye on. When you click on that, it will take you to this page here that has our tool where we go out each night and pull down the data from USGS for both the flow as measured at Lanehart Dam, as well as the salinity data from River Mile 9.1. And so I just want to take a second here. This is the daily flow. And as we start to reach the MFL of 35 CFS, you can see that over the past month, those have really diminished. If you hover on it, it'll show you the flow for that particular day. Recall that we have an MFL violation when we have less than 35 CFS for 20 consecutive days, or a salinity 20-day rolling average greater than 2. So now our flows are starting to dip a little bit below the 35 CFS, but we're still, we didn't have 20 consecutive days, so no violation there. Now on this bottom figure, we've got the salinity measured in the teal line, the daily salinity, which is the average of the two, both the surface unit and the bottom unit. It's all, this is tailored specifically to monitor the MFL. And when that number jumps above 2 parts per thousand, that's where we're the river's exhibiting or experiencing harm. So the black line though is the 20-day rolling average of the salinity values. So what we're watching carefully is to make sure that that black line does not creep above the red line. So these are some things that are at everybody's fingertips. Again, this data gets downloaded each night from USGS, and then so it's available. On occasion, you might have to pull the date slider if it's not seeing the most recent observation, but it's a nice way to see at a glance what's happening in the river. And with diminished rainfalls we had for January, you can see how that's translating into diminished flows. Then jumping back over to the page here on protecting the river. I can't remember if I reported on this water quality scorecard. We've got a whole variety of different tools here for you to slice and dice our water quality data. I'm happy to give a tour to anybody who's interested. But this water quality scorecard is one that was encouraged by one of our board members. Jim Schneider wanted us to gave the great suggestion of trying to get us to consolidate this information to speak to different audiences. So what we've done is roll it all the way up into an overall monthly score with a comparison to last year. And then we start getting into more and more detail as you scroll through. So we got our nitrogen scoring, our phosphorus scoring for that particular month. And then as you move into it more and more detail, you can get links to our stoplight maps. These are interactive maps where you can select a month of interest. And for both bacteria, all three bacteria types, enteric bacteria, coliform, and E. coli, as well as the nutrients. And I can tell you that there's nothing, jumping out at those over the past few months. What's neat to look at too then is down a little bit further is our annual maps with regard to, in this case, we've broken it up into a proportional pie chart to show you the proportion of samples that scored well versus didn't meet the water quality standard for that specific section of the river. And so these are valuable to go and kind of see how things look on an annual glance. And then building on that top form, here's kind of a tabular view of those water quality scores. Again, this information is all automated based on data that comes out of our laboratory information systems. You can see that we finished some of our nitrogen analysis. That's why we've got some value showing up there. But January is the last full month of reporting, gives you a chance to kind of see how things are trending or looking compared to the same time last year. So those are some of the things that we've got out there. Again, I'm always happy to take somebody or take anyone who's interested on a tour of some of these different interfaces. Down in the bottom middle of each of these, there's some page options to be able to advance to different pages. So we, again, go to great lengths to slice and dice this data in a million ways, tabular views, pie charts, the whole gamut. And so I encourage you to look through those and be able to kind of see where the problem areas are in the watershed and the areas that are doing well.
Thank you, Bud. Are there any questions? Anyone have any questions or comments on Bud's presentation? If not, Bud, thank you very much. It's always very informative. Moving on to member issues. Anyone have any updates on any of the 5 items?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
This is
sir.
Herb.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was very happy to hear Aubrey raise objections to the elimination of salinity from the minimum flows and levels for the river. And that certainly reflects our feeling in spades. When that minimum flow levels was established, it was very obvious that it would be meaningless if it left just the flows, because to have low flows for 20 days and then one flow of a minimum level of 35 and then another 20 days of low flows, it would not protect the ecological health of the river by any means. And So, you know, the health of the river, I think, was one of the main criterias in establishing the minimum flows. And that's why the salinity was put in there, because that will give you an idea of whether or not we are degrading the river upstream of where it was still fairly natural and not impacted by salinity intrusion. And if you eliminate that, then it just seems like the purpose of the minimum flow and level is degraded environmentally beyond usefulness. And so we have a great concern over that. And I'm very, very happy to hear Aubrey voice concern as well.
Thank you, Herb. Anyone else?
As Chad Kennedy, DEP, I had a question for Bud on the data that was going to be amended. Those showed up as violations. Bud, would the new data from USGS show that those were not, in fact, violations? Or are they still going to be violations, just the numbers will change?
There are still violations, but the numbers will change from what was there. Basically, the revision just peeled back some of the salinity values. And so there are still certainly more salinity violations in the past, in the recent years, I should say. And but there's just not quite as many as reflected on that dashboard we had up on the screen because the data changed.
Thank you. I guess while I'm taking the mic, I will speak to Herb's comment. I think this the salinity item, in my understanding, is it was more of a legal question. It was decided in Tallahassee regarding MFL, and this is something that the Water Management District didn't necessarily volunteer to do. This was something I think that they've been directed to do. So it would be interesting to kind of hear the legal background of why these specific numeric aspects of the MFL are going to be changed. So anyway, I don't know enough about the legal arguments, but hopefully Don will be able to, or someone from the Water Management District will be able to speak to that.
Okay, thank you, Chad.
This is Rebecca Elliott, FDAX, and I think Chad's right that it's something that the JAPC recommendation, because the statutory rule doesn't actually, or statutory language doesn't actually specify salinity. But I think if you want to see how that was handled, there is a Loxahatchee MFL out there that the district did on the same basis. So if you wanted to check that out, that might provide you some of the information that you're looking for. But Don is definitely the best source of information.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else for member issues?
Hey, this is Justin, Water Management. We have an update, I guess, on the Lanehart and Maston Dam portage areas. I'm not sure if the council is aware that we've had some issues with those, the deterioration of the wood of the portage areas on the dams. Some portion of Maston has been closed for portage. Folks can still make their way around it, but the portage area has been closed. We've done some minor repairs, and the engineers are out looking at it. Have recently looked at it to assess the extent of the damage, and then I guess make recommendations on what the appropriate repair should be. And then we've also had some other possible concrete issues in the water in the channel that, again, the engineers are looking at.
Okay, thank you, Justin. I'm assuming you'll keep us updated on those items?
We will.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
may I ask Justin a question?
absolutely. Or go ahead.
the damaged wood areas of the portage, was that natural, or was that some sort of vandalism, or what kind of damage?
No, yeah, it's natural. They've just from being inundated, whatever material was used, I don't know. I can't speak to the quality of it, but it has not lasted.
Thank you.
And so that's what it is.
Mr. Chair, Tom Howard for the Inlet District.
Yes, Tom, please go ahead.
Quickly, I think we have probably by now submitted our permit application for closure of the gap at River Mile 6, I think it is. And we are also looking into some maintenance that needs to be done on 2 previous Oxbow closure projects that we completed some years back. I also want to raise an issue that I don't know that we've ever talked about. And I know I'm going to make some enemies on this one, but let's go ahead anyway. When you read the Palm Beach Post, we continuously see projects coming up of very significant density. And it's certainly not our business to comment on somebody else's future plans, but I am concerned about the consumptive use permits and how they may affect the water that ultimately comes up to the Northwest Fork. I understand we have the minimum flows and levels and we have the restoration plan, but if we get deprived of the water during the dry season, then it really doesn't matter what the MFL is or the restoration plan for that matter. So I am kind of curious as to whether there have been any changes in the consumptive use permits that could affect the Northwest Fork of the Loxahatchee River. And I urge the council to consider looking into that, maybe have a presentation to see if we have had any increase in consumptive use permits that might affect the Loxahatchee River. So I throw that out there to the council because I think it's an important issue that again, we're not here to comment on any other agency's development, but we do need to keep in mind that the Loxahatchee River is at the end of the run, if you will. So I just want to make sure that we're not seeing any changes in consumptive use permits that we don't know about.
Okay, Tom, I'm sensing you'd like to either ask Justin or Kathy to reach out someone at the district, maybe to give us a 10 or 15 minute overview of consumptive use permitting and how that applies to each basin?
Well, I don't think I want to limit them to that much. I'm curious as to, has anybody requested an increase in the consumptive use permits that they have over, let's say, the 5-year period prior to the adoption of the restoration goal?
Okay, well,
Tom, Dick Roberts, a minute. Martin County went ahead and adopted their control in the comp plan for the watershed. So as developments would come up for review, it would be flagged that they are or would be in the Loxahatchee River watershed or not to get their permit. I know Chad Kennedy was going to forward that watershed map up to Tallahassee to try to see if we can get some more teeth in it too. But I don't think Palm Beach. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, this is Kathy LaMartina, and You know, the Water Management District does water supply plans for the region. And so, you know, those water supply plans are for, well, they project, I think, to like 20 or 30 years out. And so they try to take into account what's going to be requested as far as consumption. But those numbers all come from the local governments, because the Water Management District does not, you know, do land regulations and stuff. So, but I can, you know, I can certainly ask somebody to come and speak to that if that's what the council would like.
Mr. Chairman, this is Herb.
Yes, go ahead.
Tom asked about whether anybody knew about any water permits that were issued prior to the establishment of, I guess, the restoration goals and so forth. Well, I know back when the original discussions were going on about developing the Loxahatchee River restoration plan, we were trying to get our 35 CFS for the river, and I discovered that the water supply company up there in Palm Beach Gardens just got an increase of 100 CFS and the ability to put a pipe right directly in the C18 canal and withdraw 100 CFS. And I raised objections, and the leader at that time, I don't think is any longer with the Water Management District, kind of laughed at me and said, oh, 100 CFS is nothing. And I said, well, how come we can't get 35 CF for the river then? So I know that 100 CFS increase was provided for that water supply company up there before the restoration goals were established.
Thank you, Herb. And I do think it's worthwhile to, Kathy, if we can do a brief, have someone from the district do a brief presentation on the basin management plans or the water use budget plans and how those things are allocated. And I get your point about that it's really up to the local governments to establish land use densities, but just helping us to understand how that puzzle is put together, I think would be beneficial. I don't think we need an elaborate presentation, but at least an overview of the mechanism.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Tom Howard again.
Yes, Tom.
I don't know that I want to keep it too simple either. I am interested in the changes that have occurred certainly since the restoration plan was adopted, but I thought I'd be curious to see what happened 5 years before. But it's the increases in the requests for use of water that I'm interested in. And I understand that the Water Management District doesn't necessarily establish what agencies need, but the agencies certainly request it. And I would think that as a stakeholder, if you will, the Loxahatchee River is entitled to know what increases have occurred, especially since we're not even meeting the MFL 100% of the time, although we're doing a heck of a lot better than what we used to. And there may be nothing particularly interesting here, but I just think we should know.
And that's fine. That's fine. And Kathy, so if we can incorporate Tom's concerns in our future presentation, and maybe you can, don't know whether we can get that ready for our March meeting, because that's a very short turnaround time, but potentially at the following meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Herb again.
Yes, Herb.
I know at one time there was discussions about getting a permitted flow of water for the river. And I think one question that I've had is, how are we going to guarantee that if we establish our reservoirs and wells and so forth for restoration of the river, we're going to get the water we need to those facilities to make them useful. I mean, how is the Water Management District going to guarantee that the river gets the water it needs? I know there is discussion, it has been, about sending water all the way down to Dade and Broward County for water supply. So, where does the river fit in, and how are we going to make sure that it gets the water it needs and that we've talked about in the restoration plan that was passed?
Mr. Chair, this is Chad Kennedy, DEP, if I may.
Yes, Chad, please.
To Herb's comment, as Dr. Arrington mentioned earlier, the comprehensive Everglades restoration plan and the Loxahatchee River restoration is moving forward. And as part of that, the Water Management District has to, the local sponsor for the Corps of Engineers, the 50-50 partnership, the local sponsor has to ensure that there's going to be water available for the restoration project. They have to make sure that that happens before the restoration project moves forward. And my limited understanding is that there was the regional water availability rule was established to ensure that the restoration project and the Loxahatchee River would have water available. My understanding of I guess that my point would be that would probably be the item that the Water Management District would speak to, is the regional water availability rule. And my understanding was that it put a cap on the consumptive use, that there would be no additional consumptive uses within the watershed for the Loxahatchee River. But I don't know if that was like, these are just allocations that were already provided prior to that rule or as part of that rule. So the project, any of the federal projects, the SERP projects, they have to identify the source of water. The Kissimmee River restoration, for example, Polk County was very upset to know that a lot of the water that they intended to use for development was going toward the river to meet the flows of the river, the restoration flows. So it is a big deal, and I think it'd be a very good thing to. I'm glad Mr. Howard brought it up, and the Water Management District. I think that they would have to speak to the regional water availability rule, because there are rules in place to protect the water for the river. Now, obviously, the effectiveness of those rules, the violations of the MFL, I think, speak for themselves. So I do think there's things that this council should be paying attention to.
Amen.
Thank you, Chad. Anything else? If not, on a sad note, and on behalf of the Loxahatchee River Management Coordinating Council, I would like to extend our condolences to Dick Roberts in the loss of his wife, Lorraine. Lorraine's talents were many, and looking over the many publications she participated in, it's obviously she worked tirelessly. I know that all of the supporters of the Loxahatchee River have lost a great leader and supporter, but we can commemorate and celebrate her work. I'd like to challenge the rest of us to continue her efforts that both Lorraine shared with Dick and continue to make her work a success. So on behalf of the council, my heartfelt sympathies to Dick and his family.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Kathy, do we have any other items we need to discuss?
Not at this time.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if I may, this is Justin.
Yes, Justin.
would like to ask the council if they would like to have a special workshop to discuss setting goals and objectives for the management plan update. I think it is the council's responsibility to really identify and make sure that these goals are set in the plan.
Well, let me refer that, since that's going to be really following under future chair and vice chair. Aubrey, would you like to make a comment on that or set for that? I don't know, is Aubrey still on?
So
Yep.
can you, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. Can y'all repeat the question?
I would just ask the council to set up a special workshop to have a specific discussion on setting goals and objectives for the new 2020 plan, as identified in this outline.
Yes, yes, 100% yes.
And do we want to look at a date right now?
100%, I 100% support it. Sure.
And Aubrey, would you like to provide Justin with any notes or anything you would like to see in that workshop by separate document email?
I think
or through
Justin just
Kathy,
asked
excuse me.
if we wanted to look at dates.
Kathy?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that. We don't, I mean, if you want to do it now, we can, or, you know, everybody get an opportunity to look at their calendar and all that stuff. Because we do have the March meeting coming up. You know, I don't know if you want to utilize that or not.
It sounds like Aubrey has some.
Remind Kathy, the March meeting.
I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead, Justin.
I'm speaking for you, but Aubrey has some items that he wanted to add to the March meeting. So I'm curious if we want to set a special workshop just to discuss the management plan, and maybe looking at again in April.
Justin, this is Chad, DEP. Why don't you put that forward as a motion, and let's follow some Robert Rules of Order and put it out there for the.
I don't think we can do a motion because it wasn't on the agenda.
So we'll have to add it to the agenda.
I think it's.
I'm not here to, this is Tom Howard.
Right. I think
you can have a motion at a meeting with not being on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. So in that case,
Tom, as a parliamentarian, do you believe that a motion is necessary to propose a schedule a meeting?
To schedule a special meeting? Yes.
A workshop, to schedule a workshop.
Yeah, that would be considered basically a special meeting. Why don't we put it on let me just suggest respectfully, put it on the agenda for March. And if in March you feel you need to continue it, then you can set something for April perhaps. And do that by motion at that point.
Tom, let me just, that's what I want to make sure. You're asking to put an item on the agenda in March to entertain a motion for a workshop to be held, not the workshop itself.
No, I'm just throwing out a suggestion. Put it on for the March agenda, the regular meeting, the discussion about the projects, because we're on a kind of a short fuse by Ms. Watson. I think that's a good thing. I'm not, so I can understand she wants her input as quickly as possible. So why don't you put the topic on the agenda for March, and then in March, Aubrey and the council can decide if they want to have a workshop.
Perfect. Okay.
Complete it. And as far as my request on the other issue on consumptive use permits, I think put it off to June, because we don't want to jam whoever's going to present to do it within 3 or 4 weeks. So put my request off to June.
Okay, thank you. Any other issue?
So then my assumption is that this is Aubrey again, that we will at the March meeting discuss the issue Justin brought up, materially discuss it. And if we don't get a conclusion, then we would ask at that meeting during that discussion to schedule a special meeting.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. So I hope everybody else did too.
Great.
Tom, does that
good?
What you were suggesting?
It is. Sounds very
Okay,
good.
great. All right, thanks for helping us clarify that. Any other issues? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
In a second.
Second.
Okay. Without that, all approve, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.